Chapter 8 9 o'clock a.m. Dad once told Lucas that what he liked most about fighting fires was that everyone had a job to do. If you don't work together, you don't put out the fire. Now Lucas looked around the firehouse. He needed a job, he realized, something he could do to help. He went into the kitchen. The table was covered with plates of half-eaten bacon and eggs. The sink was overflowing with dirty pots. He got to work, clearing the dishes and glasses from the table. Every few minutes the alarm box squawked and the dispatcher came on with a new alarm. All units meet at Vesey and West Streets. The TV was on the counter, the sound turned down. The picture on the screen showed the burning tower. Lucas reached out and turned up the volume so that he could hear it over the voice of the dispatcher. If you're just joining us, ladies and gentlemen, the TV man's voice said, you're looking at an extraordinary sight. Just a few minutes ago, a plane crashed into Tower 1 at New York's famed World Trade Center. We have no official information about what kind of plane it was, but witnesses report it being a commercial jet. Lucas picked up Georgie's huge cast iron skillet and started scrubbing. The towers were built in 1970, the man continued, at 110 floors each. They were once the tallest buildings in the world. There are hundreds of firefighters on the scene. We have reports that firefighters have been entering the building and heading up the stairs to reach people who might need assistance. It's an amazing sight. The smoke was thicker now, painting the blue sky a dirty brown. There were white dots flashing in the smoke, almost like confetti. Paper, Lucas realized. Millions of pieces of paper swept out through the hole in the building. The man kept talking about the towers, that they took 4 years to build and that they could withstand winds of 140 miles per hour, that 50,000 people work there. His voice was calm, almost like a teacher giving a history lesson. Lucas was reaching up to hang the heavy skillet on the hook over the sink. Suddenly, the man on the TV gasped. Oh my gosh, what was that? Another explosion. Ladies and gentlemen, it looks like a second plane. Yes, another jet. It has just crashed into the second tower. The heavy skillet slipped out of Lucas's hand and into the sink, shattering plates and glasses. Lucas barely noticed. His eyes did not move from the TV screen. Ladies and gentlemen, the man said again, his voice shaking, we're going to replay the video of what we just saw. The screen flipped. It showed the North Tower burning. And then suddenly, on the left side of the screen, another plane appeared. Just like the first, it was a big jet. And quick as a blink, it slammed into the other tower, exploding into a fireball. Fire erupted out of all sides of the building, a ring of flaming blackness. There were 2 clouds of churning black smoke. Lucas's heart pounded. It was hard to breathe. There were more people talking on the TV now, not just the man. Oh my, that looked, one woman said. What did we just see? Said another. Ladies and gentlemen, the man said, we have just witnessed the horrific sight of a second plane hitting the other tower, the South Tower. There was a massive explosion. There must be a computer problem, a complete failure of the air traffic control system, said the first woman. What the man said next made Lucas's entire body start to shake. That did not look like an accident, he said. It looks like that plane flew into that tower on purpose. I think this is some kind of attack. Chapter 9. Lucas tried calling Mom again. Now, when he called, he got a fast, busy signal and a recording. All circuits are busy. He tried Dad's phone, same thing. He dialed over and over, Mom, Dad, Mom, Dad. He just kept getting the busy signal. The department radio crackled. Recall, recall, the dispatcher said. All personnel on duty and off are to report. I repeat, this is a recall of all emergency personnel. There were 11,000 firefighters in the department. They needed every single one. Before Lucas knew what he was doing, he had run out into the street. He couldn't be alone watching the world fall apart on TV. He needed to find Dad and Uncle Benny and the rest of the men. He wanted to be with them. He knew he wasn't thinking clearly. He didn't know if he'd even be able to get close to where they were, if it was even safe to try. But he went anyway. Some kind of attack. Was that man on TV right? What did that even mean? Who was attacking? Did he mean that those planes had hit the towers on purpose? The thought hadn't even come into Lucas's mind when he saw the first plane hit. But thinking about it now, of course that was the only thing that made sense. The day was so perfectly clear. There was no way that two airplanes could have hit the towers unless they had been aiming right for them. But who could be insane enough, evil enough to fly planes into buildings? Lucas wiped away the tears running down his face. He wove through the crowds of people on the sidewalk. Some were running north, but most seemed like they were in shock, standing there dazed, staring up at the fires above them. The only noise was sirens, hundreds of them, honking and screaming, wailing and shrieking and blaring. The sounds all crashed together into one terrible song. A crowd of people huddled around something in the middle of the street. Lucas slowed down and looked. It was a big tire attached to a tangle of metal. It didn't look like the tire of a car or a truck. "What is that?" a woman said. "It's part of a plane," said a man. "It's the landing gear." Lucas looked away. He pushed through the crowds heading south. Vesey and West Streets. That's where that's where the staging area was, where the firefighters were gathering. If Dad had made it here from Randall's Island, that's where Lucas would find them. He would look for the Seagrave. He would wait there for Dad. Lucas inched towards through the crowd. Most people were standing still watching, but now there were more people coming from the direction of the towers. Some of them were soaked in sweat, their clothes tattered, but it was the looks on their faces, stunned and horrified, that told Lucas where they had come from, inside the towers. There were dozens and dozens of them, some walking alone, others holding hands. Some of the women were barefoot. He imagined their high-heeled shoes kicked into the corners of the stairwells. Nobody was carrying a purse or a briefcase, and Lucas understood why. He heard many stories about people who had survived fires and explosions and collapses. So many times they'd escape with not a second to spare. If they had stopped for anything, to grab a purse or tie a shoe, they wouldn't have made it. A policeman up ahead was trying to stop people from moving south. "Everyone, please leave this area," he shouted. "It's not safe. Please leave this area and head north." But Lucas kept walking, and nobody tried to stop him. He felt invisible. Ladder 177 had to be one of the first units to get to the tower. That meant they'd be the closest. Lucas was still 3 blocks away when he felt a hand on his shoulder. "Hey," a young policeman said, "where are you going? Are you lost?" "I need to find—" And before he could get the words out, he heard someone calling his name. "Lucas!" His name rose up over all the sirens. "Dad!" And there was his dad, pushing through the crowd. He grabbed Lucas and held him tight. For a few seconds, Lucas couldn't hear the sirens. All he could hear was the beating of his dad's heart. And that's the end of chapter 9.